In the wake of the horrible death last year of George Floyd, we saw the growth of cancel culture, identity politics, and the attempt to redraw and reshape almost the entire British history. It led to scenes of absolute yobbery on the streets, Winston Churchill's statue being defaced more than once, the cenotaph being desecrated, and then the mob on the street in Bristol tearing down the Colston statue and throwing it into the dock. I was horrified by these scenes of mob violence, and yet we were met with media doing their absolute best to give justification for what was being done in the name of Black Lives Matter. We saw the English cricket team, advertising Black Lives Matter, the Premier League, big corporate businesses, and taking the knee became all the rage. Police chiefs taking the knee and encouraging those on duty to do so, despite the fact that one of the key aims of Black Lives Matter was to defund the police force. Corporate companies saying what a marvellous idea Black Lives Matter was, without understanding one of their key aims was to close down Western capitalism in its entirety. Almost everybody that came and spoke out for Black Lives Matter had not even looked at their website. They are a Marxist and dangerous organisation. I now see Priti Patel, the Home Secretary, has said something today about this. Well, not before time. I did stand up and point out I knew this organisation from the USA. I knew that they and Antifa weren't about racial equality or fairness. They were about bringing down the system. And in the wake of all of this, the Mayor of London, our old friend Sadiq Khan, well, he launched his commission for diversity in the public realm. And it's to raise public understanding behind existing statues, street names, building names, and memorials. So Khan has got 15 people on this commission at a cost to the taxpayer of £250,000. And they're going to examine the names and the architecture of London. Do you think they'll do it in a fair and objective way? Well, I'm very grateful to the Guido Fawkes website for flagging this up yesterday, because they've outlined some of the members of this commission. And I want to share this with you so that you're ready and prepared for when this commission reports, because I think when it comes to changing British history, when it comes to demonising our former heroes, I suspect we ain't seen nothing yet. Let's begin with Toyin Agbetu. Let's just see this clip.
Let go of me! You said you were going to let go of me. Let go of me!
The service came to a halt. The congregation watched as, still standing a few yards from the Queen, the protester Toyin Agbetu demanded that Britain issue a formal apology for its part in the slave trade.
The word sorry is so hard to say, and you, the Queen, can you let us go? I'll punch you out.
So this lout heckles the Queen, says she should be ashamed, and then when he's restrained, threatens to punch a police officer. I'm not sure he's the kind of person who objectively can decide how London portrays its history, because it seems to me he pretty much hates the way the country is. We can go next to Andrea Emmerleaf, who expressed her delight at the guerrilla-style statue removal in Bristol. She said she described seeing the crane, lifting it from its plinth and dumping it into the dock. She felt a rush of adrenaline. Well, I don't know. But, I mean, she's clearly got a mission. She says that she wants all of this to inspire change in how we see people of colour, of LGBTIAQ plus communities, or people with disabilities. Riz Ahmed is perhaps the best known person on this commission, an actor, very high profile. This is what he had to say, with an appropriate bleep. This is what he had to say about our Prime Minister.
What do you think about Boris becoming Prime Minister?
Oh man, it is like a bit of a first. Because obviously you've had, female Prime Ministers, you had an African-American president, and now for the first time we've got an out-and-out complete as Prime Minister. Do you know what I mean? But I think I don't know what's worse, man. I don't know if it's like the fact that he's someone who's overtly racist. I don't know if it's worse that he's someone who blatantly lies to the public, or the fact that he looks like Donald Trump's wig grew legs.
Again, somebody aggressively of the left. And the fourth person that was singled out yesterday on that website, Lynette Naboza. And this is truly astonishing. She's claimed that white supremacy is uniquely British. If you look back far enough, and not always that far, the UK seems to be the common denominator in atrocities across the world, no matter where you find examples of white supremacy. All roads lead back to the country of my birth. It was racism that birthed slavery and colonialism, and on she goes. So just think about that. We are the common denominator in atrocities across the world. Had you noticed what the French Empire did to their colonies, what the Spanish Empire did, what the Portuguese Empire did, and don't even start me on what the Germans tried to do twice to the world? Has she any idea that in relative terms, the British Empire was very benign compared to what everybody else in the world was doing? And do any of these people have a clue that when it comes to slavery, we were the first country, not just to abolish slavery, but to use the Royal Navy over decades to stop other countries from practicing the slave trade? Of course, our history contains episodes that we may not regard as being perfect today. But our history, compared with virtually every other country, is one that we can be very rightly proud of. Now, one of those people who took the knee earlier this year was, of course, the Labour leader, Sir Keir Starmer. But now, in the last couple of weeks, a Labour report has realised that one of the reasons they lost all the votes in the north of England, first to UKIP, then the Brexit Party, then the Conservatives, was because people looked at the Labour Party as just not being patriotic. So the new Labour Party, they are going to embrace the flag. They're going to become a patriotic, old-style Labour Party. Well, Sir Keir, if you want that to be in any way credible, you would better rein in the Labour Mayor of London, Sadiq Khan, who, by appointing the people that I've read out to you in this broadcast today, are clearly intent on absolutely redrawing the history of one of the greatest and most successful cities in the world. And if Starmer cannot rein in Khan, his identity politics, his willful adoption of cancel culture, then the Labour Party will lose by even more votes at the next election than Jeremy Corbyn did at the last.